Welcome to part 3 of our OSWE journey. In this episode, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can exploit XXE, External Entity Injection, via XSS using session writing. For those who haven't seen my previous 2 videos, or technically 3 if you include the talk about it, then I would highly recommend you go and check it out because it's going to make a lot more sense. In those videos, I explain how to build the application and how to get to where we are right now. And they're only around 20 minutes each, so I think it's definitely worth watching because it's going to make more sense in this video. Okay, so just to summarize what we had, for those who are just watching it from what they are, we have XSS in the sense of a user can write some XSS code here that then executes in the admin, and then from there we've been able to control where the admin goes and be able to dump the backend of the admin. So, for example, the admin can access the admin.php, but my Kali machine cannot, as I'll show you here. We can't get there, we get an error saying not allowed. However, we can read the admin.php by using our XSS and writing a Python script to handle that work for us. I'm not sure if I went over the Python script entirely in the previous video, I don't think I did, but simply what it does is it handles 2 parameters, the content and the URL. Basically, it takes the content and puts it in a file from a post request. And the XSS JavaScript to do that is simply just makes a request to our target page, i.e. upload.php, takes a response and then passes it to our Python code. Now the next step is a little bit more complicated because see, in this case we have to do file upload via XSS, which is a bit more involved. So what I did to do this basically is I used burp to make my life easier. So what I did is I took this upload.php file, which is located here, and basically made it into a live page and then caught it in burp. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that now. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up a fresh terminal like I have here, and then if you look in here, we have these. If I go php-s and then open up a port on 800 for the sake of it all making a bit more sense later. That's now opened up a web server. If we now browse to over here, go to 0:800 / we now have the upload page, except this time it actually will let us click stuff and we can actually catch it in burp. It's actually in a proper web server. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my burp suite, ensure my proxy is turned on, go ahead and upload a file. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and upload. Let me go ahead and just check this one out. I think this should be sufficient. When I catch it in burp, it will tell me what I uploaded. In this case, I uploaded this sec aura stuff. I'm going to go ahead and right click, go to extensions, engagement tools, and go to generate CServ POC. Now, I have the pro version of burp, so you might not have access to this. But what I will do is I will leave the template for this in the in my GitHub that I will link to, and then you can simply just copy and paste it into that. It will make more sense when I get there. So generate CServ POC, and basically from the CServ POC, what it does is it opens up what's called an XML HTTP request. Now I could use fetch to do this, but I thought using 2 different ways via JavaScript would make a lot of sense. And also to show you an alternate way if, say, for example, fetch is blocked. And we can use XHR for a lot of things. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a function. We don't really need the function, but we need what's inside the function. We create a new object, XML HTTP request. We then open to this host on this resource, making a post request, we set the headers, and then we send this data. Now in the GitHub, all you have to do is basically just catch the request and just replace the contents with this. Now there are some complications in the sense of, yes, this is like hex encoded, but I'm sure you can find a way around it. And to be fair, I'm not even entirely sure if you even need to hex encode it. It might even still work regardless. It might be burp just being extra precautionary to ensure that's how it's set. Okay, yes, so I'm going to go ahead and basically take the contents of this and basically mess with it so we can kind of see what's going on. So if I go into my web server and I go to inspect element, go to console and I paste this, what it will do is it will make a HTTP request to that web server. Now there's going to be no response because the page doesn't have any backend to handle it. But if I take the same request and I go into my normal one here, and I just jig it a little bit to the point where I change this to be, in fact, that should probably work on its own. If I go ahead and hit enter, we're getting an error, but it might have still worked. If I now type in XHR dash response. Okay, it's not autocorrecting, so it probably is empty. Let me just check this is right. Oh, I know why it isn't working. We need to do /blog. Okay. And then we press enter. Now if we do XHR, we should now have a response. Okay, which is actually also empty. Okay, maybe an error on my end in terms of the copy of that. Let me go ahead and look at the XML HTTP request real quick, just to check that it's all right. We are making a request to this. Maybe it's a case of needing to put localhost. Maybe it doesn't like that we wrote the quadruple zeros. Now, in a real environment, you wouldn't be able to do this, but you'd obviously have to kind of guess what to type in. Let me go ahead and try this again. Okay, now that's working. So basically the issue is my web browser didn't know what 0000 was, but it knew what localhost was. Now the point is, we can now basically make an XML HTTP request with our XXE XML code to the system and read the response. We can see here we have name, Sakura, comment, please subscribe. So what we have done there is we have then sent some code. The application has then processed it and then sent it back to us. If we, for example, look in our upload over here, if we upload very similar, so XML copy, upload, we can then see basically the same content, but obviously different XML data. Okay, so what does that mean? Basically what that means is if we can do it on our client, we can do it in our XSS. So I already have that kind of put together, and I will go ahead and show it. So we go into OSWE, we go over to my video folder, go into XXE. Now this one is a little bit more complicated in the sense of this one actually abuses an XML external entities attack. Now before doing this over JavaScript, I'm going to go ahead and show you it in my actual Windows host, so you can kind of see what happens. So if I go ahead and upload XML copy, we get this data. However, if I go ahead and upload this XML, which you can't see right now, but I know what's in it, what are we going to get back? Are we going to get back hello or something? Well, actually, no. We get a big bunch of data. Now, I haven't statically put this data in there. If we go ahead and look at the contents of that, let me go ahead and pull it out. File upload, if we go to XML, this is what's in that file. What we're doing here is what's called an XML external entity injection. Now, the application is running PHP. It's running PHP. So we have to use PHP base XXE payloads. In this case, what we're doing is we're creating a variable, XXE. And then we're assigning the value of that variable to, we're assigning the value of the variable XXE is equal to the system, then the PHP wrapper filter convert basics for encode resource. Basically what this does is it takes a file, basics for encodes it, stores it in this variable, and then we call that variable with this, and XXE semicolon. The name of the variable doesn't matter, provided that it matches here and there. Now, if I were to say change this from upload.php to say db.php, as you'll see here, give it a save, and I re-upload it, I'm going to get different contents. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the contents that we get, base64, decode. Take the first result. Cool. Go ahead and copy this. Now, obviously, I know the source code, but the attacker doesn't, and I can see the source code here. This is basically the DB credentials. Nothing important here, but you know, the upload.php has other code, and the db.php has maybe even more helpful code. In our case, not massively helpful. However, there is a code here. There is a password that we could use maybe later, but that's no worries. Okay, so to summarize, basically an XXE will take an XML file, and XML supports in some cases what's called a DTD, a document type. I can't remember what it stands for now actually. Let me Google it. XML DTD. I think it's like document type something, document type definition. Basically, it's like a variable. You can set a variable, so XXE, and it is equal to some other variable. In our case, we have the variable XXE, and the value of XXE is equal to the result of this, which we then tell XML to run in our XML parser. Now, the reason this works is because in our XML code, we actually, not that one, try and find my VS code. which is there. We have libxml DTD load enabled. This isn't so commonly enabled, but it still will appear in very many assessments, so it's worth knowing. Okay, so moving back to where we were, basically an XXE means that we can run some code. We can upload an XML file, or some kind of XML data. It doesn't have to be a file. The XML processor will process said data, and if we get it correct, it will then actually execute our call to this, assign it to this variable, and then print out the variable data. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and basically do the same here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the contents of that file. So go back into my thing here, copy. I'm going to go ahead and back into my Kali and wherever it is there. Go back into my burp, go into here. I'm going to go ahead and basically replace this with the XML data. Right click, go to engagement tools, generate CSRF POC. I want to go ahead and steal the data as I did before, just to get the right one this time. The right one to remove, that is. Cool. Go ahead and where is it? There it is. I'm going to go ahead and basically take all this XHR data, copy, and then basically, or as I already have here, I have it pasted here. If I were to go basically just grab all this and paste it over the top, you'd see not much has really changed other than maybe a new line. For the sake of things being a little bit cleaner, I'm going to go ahead and just undo that so I can see. Maybe there's a few new lines in that, that's why it's slightly offset, but the content is the same really. What we're looking at is creating an XML object, sending this XML data, and then passing that data into the body, and then when we send the XHR, we're then sending the body in the XHR request. Finally, we have to add this little bit of code here, basically to listen to the response. Now, the way that JavaScript works in this case is basically, if we print the response out in the line after here, this data the request here might not have been complete, so therefore we get an empty object, an empty like text returned. In this case, we need to use this to basically read that data after it has finished. This simply just creates a listener and says, hey, when you're done, store it in a variable. And then finally, this bit of code here, we've used fetch before, basically takes that contents, which is stored as XHR.response, and sends it to our Python host. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, put it into here. Just check that I'm in the right directory for it, so I'm not overwriting the wrong thing. Go ahead and paste this in here. And now, when we refresh the page, we should get a connection made to our server. And we can see that here, not that one, but go ahead and ls, we should have now an XXE.html. Now the reason it's called XXE.html is because in our file, we just named it XXE. Now if we go ahead in Firefox, XXE.html, we see that data back. Again, this is for my Kali instance, right? We literally can't get to the admin, right? Like we can't get to the admin from my Kali. Like it's just going to give us a not allowed error, right? But what we can do is we can use our XSS to session ride to do an XXE and basically read local files. So let's go ahead and look at the contents. We have this data. I'm going to go ahead and copy. Go over to my burp. Go to decoder, paste, decode as base64, and then we can see here we have a DB file. Doesn't let me scroll, it doesn't let me make it any bigger, but yeah. Okay, so this DB file doesn't really have anything interesting in there, so I'm going to go ahead and go back into XSS.js. I'm going to go ahead and change this to upload.php, because I want to basically look at all the files I know that exist. And we could probably like brute force this, but obviously we want to try things we already know so we can read them. Okay, go back over to my web host, go to refresh. And also we can see if we go into inspect and go into the network. If I go ahead and refresh this again, you see actually a lot of requests are made. We have a request made to XSS.js and then an upload.php. We haven't even gone to upload.php in yet. We're somehow sending data there. Look, we can see here, here's our XSS. The admin is literally running our code, which is awesome. Okay, cool. So go back over to here. We go over to, maybe we can just refresh this page. We go ahead and just remove XXE just for the second, just so I know that it worked. Go ahead and hit refresh. Now if I open that up, yeah, now we have this content, and it should probably be what we're after. I'm going to go ahead over to base64 decode again, because unfortunately burp's version is a little bit short. Paste, decode, and here we have the contents of upload.php. Now if we look at the contents of upload.php, we actually notice that there's some functionality that isn't known to the user. I've written this comment here just to reference it, and we basically have things that say if is set request debug command line parameter and request debug command secret is set. So we've learned two things from here. We know that there's a debug parameter, and we also know that there's a password to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and basically copy those into so please, that's not going to work. Go to mousepad. Let's copy these bits of data. So that is our parameter, and then the password is please subscribe to Sakura. Now I need to make sure that I'm copying it correctly because I think there's a smiley face in there. Yes, there is. It's just here. Okay, so it's going to look something like question mark. Subscribe to Sakura. Question mark. Go back to my thingy and get to the thingy. So we're looking for debug command secret. We need to be like this. So it needs to be question mark command secret equals subscribe to Sakura, and then our command parameter. We can demonstrate that this works by if I simply just copy this entire line, go back over to my Windows host, go into upload.php, put that in there, and then if I go ahead and close this, we should see that there should be some content down here. Perhaps I messed something up. Let me go ahead and just check on my end if I copy and paste that right. It's possible I didn't. Command secret. Yeah, that should be okay. But unfortunately it isn't working. Command line parameter. Just checking that it's all right. Maybe it's a capital S. It is a capital S. So go ahead and make the S to subscribe to Sakura capital, and then now we have command execution. Now, obviously, this is on our Windows host, so we haven't actually achieved anything. But the point is, we know that it works, so we need to go ahead and basically make the admin do the same, and basically, so we can get command execution ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and just take this and append it to our request. Now, I actually have done a bit of the work for us in that regard because I have the request kind of ready. I believe it is in here. That one is a little bit ugly. I'm going to go back into my, I think it was this one, video in the XSS. Okay, it's this one. So back over to here, I'm going to go ahead and paste this here. And basically what we want to do is this is our path. So this is a path to the RCE. This is our command. And then we're basically just telling the admin, apologies for my coughing, I have to keep muting, just getting a little bit ill. Telling the admin basically to go to this URL with the RCE appended to it, which is dir, and then take the response and then send it to us. Make sense? Okay, hopefully it does. I'm going to go ahead and now go back to my admin page, refresh, and now we should have, if I go into here, we should now have a file called RCE. And we do indeed, cat rce.html. I'm going to go ahead and Firefox into rce.html, and we can see here what the admin saw before on the upload.php page. Wherever it was like here. Basically, our Kali user has managed to get the admin to run an RCE code, which is sweet. Obviously, this isn't what we want to be though, because we want to get a reverse shell. Okay, let me go ahead and check on how long this video's been recording for. Okay, we have a few minutes before it becomes we get past 20, so I'm going to go ahead and do the final shell upload. So what I want to do now is I basically want to upload a reverse shell. Simply to do that, what I want to go ahead and do is run this command down here. So I don't need to view the response of the page here. I just need to basically tell it to do some stuff. Okay, so what does that mean? So basically what we have here is we have we're telling it to fetch some content, and we're basically using PowerShell-C invoke web request and then to a shell.php. Now the reason we can't just use, say, invoke TCP reverse shell as I normally have is because my Windows host has got an antivirus, and as much as I like things to be simple, I also kind of like the challenge. So what I did in this case is I used my own shell.php because my antivirus blocks it, and this should now work. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a few things first. I'm going to go ahead and close my PHP server. Go ahead and CP in my OSWE. I should have a my OSWE normal one. If I could spell right, that'd be fantastic. OSWE should have a shell.php. Nope. I think it is in host. Shell.php. I'm going to copy that to our current directory and just give it a check just that it's right. Just so it looks right. That the IP is the same. Yeah, cool. That looks good to me. Okay, right. So I need to do two things. I need to first of all host the IP. Host the reverse shell. Turns out I already have a web server running on here. That should be okay. That should be sufficient. That is running on port, I think it was 9000. Yes. And our RCE code is running on, hopefully, not this one. It's running on, where are we? It is running on, I keep repeating that. Also 9000. Okay, so that links up right. Okay, so if I go ahead and just, I don't need this content thing right now because it's just not very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and just show you how this works. If I open up shells 1337, what this basically does is open up a reverse shell for me. And I go ahead and just give this a save in here. We should then have a request made out to shell.php. If I go ahead and go to the admin page, go to here, we have the get shell.php. Now that I guess doesn't exist. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this and then just move the shell.php. Should be in output to shell to the current directory, and then now I run the web server. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. Actually, I don't need that for the moment. Go ahead and give this a refresh. Now we have a request to shell.php. We've got 200, and then we should have a request made to shell.php. It should give us a reverse shell. In this case, it didn't work immediately, but that's maybe because it was too slow. I'm going to go ahead over to do this manually and say, hey, I want you to give me the shell now. It should hopefully work, shell.php. And if I go back over to my Kali, we now have a connection made from our Windows host to our Linux host, and now we are running as this user, which is my Windows machine. So I can go ahead and do like I could go ahead and view anything I wanted to. So like cat is admin.php. Okay, cat isn't there, it isn't available. I'll do type, and then we can read the contents. Sweet. So that has been XSS cross-site scripting due to session writing through to XXE, which allowed us to then read local files. Let me start again, sorry. XSS, which gave us access to control the admin. Session writing, which let us dump the contents of the files, so upload.php and admin.php. To XXE, which let us read the contents of those files, so basically local file inclusion. And then remote code execution, which basically meant we can run dir or who am I or whatever. And then finally upgrading it to a reverse shell. Now, if we look into our VS Code, we can actually see the reverse shell is actually in there now. If we go back over to blog 1, we can see there's a shell.php, and that is our code. Now, yeah, we could have put it in /temp or one of the driver Windows folders, but just for the sake of demonstration, that worked. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you learned something in the process. And the reason this all relates to OSWE is because this is the kind of stuff you're going to be doing if you do the exam. You're going to have to basically think on your feet, and you're going to have less help than I have given you, because you have the source code, but there's going to be a lot more source code to sift through, and lots of other bits and pieces to do. I know me personally, I use a lot of the techniques used in this to complete my exam in various forms. And yeah, so super helpful. Hopefully, hopefully it helps you guys. I spent a lot of effort into building this, and hopefully you can appreciate what we learnt, and hopefully it helps you in your exam. Kind of mumbling here. But yeah, feel free to message me about any questions, about anything really. Like I say, part 0 of the series where I talk about the OSWE exam should hopefully get rid of most of your questions, hopefully cover most things, but you know, the technical side that I've demonstrated should hopefully give you at least an insight into what there is and what is to come, and the various different attacks and languages and that kind of thing. I'm going to upload all of the relevant resources to my GitHub, and you could probably spin this up yourself. I will include instructions on my GitHub how to set up the XAMPP server and stuff. Like I said, I'm using Windows, I'm using XAMPP, and it was quite straightforward, and the code should just work. All you need is a valid internet connection and XAMPP, really, and it should be okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to leave it at that. Like I say, like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you in the next one. There may be more OSWE videos. We'll find out, but for the moment, that ends this this part of the series. There may be another little mini series within the OSWE. So I will catch you in the next one, and never going to give you up. Take care, everyone. Bye.